now. So thanks everyone for joining. We've got a fair number of people joining and listening in. And welcome to our webinar on navigating the global mobility landscape, past, present, and future. My name is Anthony. I'm Director of Product here at Localize, and I'll be your host today. As of some of you who've probably heard those conversations, I have a Labradoodle who might jump in at some point, so let's look for that. But in the next 60 minutes, we'll have a conversation with our expert panel exploring the global mobility space and the impact of digital innovation. We'll also look at some emerging trends in the industry and delve into strategies that will help you and your company adapt to them. And to cap it all off, we'll do a live demo. So everyone keep fingers crossed on the internet stays stable, offering a first-hand example of how digitalization can streamline global mobility management. So without further ado, please welcome our panelists. Let's start with you, Krista. Can you introduce yourself, your current role, and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate you guys having me here. I'm Krista Caldwell. I am the Principal Global Mobility and Immigration Partner with PagerDuty, which is a software company based out of San Francisco. I'm based out of Denver, Colorado, and work remotely. And over the course of my career, I've worked in a few different industries, primarily in the engineering world. So I was in the engineering world for about 13 years. So dealt with a very traditional cost-focused mobility program, shifted into public accounting, and then now I'm in the tech industry. So very different ends of the spectrum as far as the mobility experience. So experiencing a lot of new things now in tech, which has been exciting, and I'm happy to be here and share some experiences.
Awesome. And you, Mark?
Yeah, I am Mark, originally from Bristol in the UK, but been in Amsterdam for just over 3 years now. It's the first day I'm using a desk fan, so yeah, more weather chat, hot and sticky here. But yeah, I came from a kind of generalist HR background, but was introduced to mobility in the tech world around 3.5 years ago. I joined Bird, formerly Message Bird, which is a Dutch but very international software company. And like one of the most kind of noteworthy things that I was involved with there was our fairly remote first approach. So and using a lot of employer of record at the time. So expanded out into 30 plus countries within a couple of years via a couple of EORs, which was pretty chaotic to say the least, but like a super interesting time. And obviously all the nuances that come with that. And then, yeah, around a year ago, I joined Personio. We're a HR software platform, if people don't know us very well, focusing on the SME market, but we have a close partnership with agencies like Localize. So yeah, from a very EOR heavy space, I moved to an environment which is much more based around office and culture. We have a lot of relocations as a result of that. So and within a company of 2,000, we have a team of 4, which I think is quite unique actually. So it shows the value of mobility in a tech company. So not only with relocations, but we also look after flexible working policy, business travel, and other things as well. So yeah, it's a focal point, which is something I really appreciate, I think, at Personio.
Nice. Thank you both. I think you both seem very, very busy. So thank you for joining and thank you for sharing your knowledge with everyone here today. So my first question to you both, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing global mobility today? And in contrast, what new opportunities have emerged from this?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I think I don't think there's a single answer to that question. I think, there's a lot of different challenges that we're facing in mobility. I think it depends on the company that you're in, the industry that you're in, the locations where you operate, the type of workforce that you have. And so I think that, when we look at all these different challenges, we're faced with consolidation of our supply chain. We're faced with technology changes, disruptors. I think there's a whole host of challenges that we continuously face. What I think that does is that gives us the opportunity to innovate and to create and to approach our business and our programs differently than we did, years ago. And so I think that's been a tremendous opportunity as we face different challenges within the industry. It's giving us the opportunity to grow and to learn and to experience just different types of mobility than we have in the past.
Yeah, I think much the same. I think there's so much to touch on here. Mobility, I think whether we kind of like it or not, is often in react mode to what we're seeing around us. So it keeps us on our toes, but I think that's kind of why we enjoy it. And yeah, like Krista mentioned, the opportunities to innovate are there. We're reacting a lot to, I don't really need to go into too much detail about health crises, geopolitics, all of these things, but which creates a flexible demand for a flexible landscape and for things to change. And the difficulty is that a lot of kind of regulations in the background aren't necessarily keeping up. I use an example where at Personio currently doing a review of our flexible remote work policy and trying to establish kind of guardrails and guidelines with that is very hard when there's no like hard and fast rules a lot of things. So you're kind of trying to mitigate risk while remaining attractive to your employees and candidates as well. I think in terms of opportunities, talent diversity is one of the main great things about mobility. So that will kind of never change no matter what is happening around us. And mobility as a tool for growth. I think recently, actually, Localize, I saw a report where you talked about ROI. So that was really really interesting one to read about how you use mobility as a tool, which helps attraction and then for retention as well, often of workers. So yeah, it's a never-ending thing, but keeps us very much interested in what we do, I guess.
Yeah. Definitely, the React mode very resonates. We had our product advisor board yesterday, and the geopolitics and no one knows what's going to happen with all the elections throughout the next sort of 6 months or so. So very much reactive across the board at Global Mobility there. Cool. Now looking back, Krista, you've worked in Global Mobility for over 20 years. In your experience, how has the landscape of Global Mobility evolved over the past few decades, and what key lessons have you learned from past practices that can inform our current strategies?
That's a great question. I think, there's been a lot of shifts in many different areas in mobility over the last 20 years. I think what I saw, especially being in the engineering and oil and gas industry, was mobility was a cash cow, or it was a way for people to go abroad and make excessive amounts of money. They would take their family. It was usually the husband working, the wife bringing the kids, and it was just an opportunity for them to make excessive amounts of money. I think over the years that's definitely shifted, and yes, there are still opportunities for making money, but that's not the primary driver of most mobility experiences. I think it's shifted more to being career driven, career opportunities for growth and development. Also, different project assignments and different types of ways for people to experience mobility without being just the primary driver being money. I also think, there's been a shift from a little bit more of a company-focused approach to a little bit more employee-centric. And so I've noticed that as well. We're not just applying a one-size-fits-all policy to every individual who's taking an assignment or relocating, and we're trying to customize and be a little bit more aware of the employee's needs and how we can address those in a unique way while still providing a policy and program that's more consistent. And I definitely see that there's been a shift in the types of assignments. I think in the past, we were much more likely to see long-term assignments, family status, very specific locations. And I think now we've shifted to a lot more unique types of assignments where there's shorter term, maybe extended business travel, rotational assignments, maybe not as many accompanied, depending upon the location. So I think that's definitely been a shift that we have seen, and I think we will continue to see. And then I think as well, just the methods of support. I think in the past, we had a lot more hands-on support, a lot more face-to-face interactions, and just a different way that we interacted with our assignees. And now with just the digital transformation of the world, there's a lot of different types of support that are a little bit more technologically advanced, a little bit less hands-on, because I think that's the way people are now. They want information. They don't always want to talk to a person. I tend to receive a text more likely than I will a call. And so, I'm in the same boat. And so transforming how we interact with our individuals, I think, has been a big part of that. And then as far as lessons learned, I think the biggest thing is just recognizing the evolution of the industry and the fact that it's going to continue to change. And as mobility professionals, we have to take what we've learned and know that we can continue to change as the industry changes. It's not like we're, writing a policy that's going to fit for the next 10 years, but we know that as things come and as they change, we may have to adapt. And I think the last 5 years is very evident of the fact that we had to react quickly. We had to make changes. We had to get involved in things we weren't involved with. So that agility, just to be flexible and take those lessons that we learned and apply them in different ways in the future is something that I think is really important for all mobility professionals.
For sure. And you kind of mentioned over the last 5 years, kind of leads nicely on to the next question. Like Mark, obviously your time, so Bird being like fully remote, going to like Personia being more focused in-house. Like, What have been some of the major effects on global mobility trends post-pandemic?
Yeah, well, I think I haven't been in this industry for as long as Krista, like particularly wouldn't know so much about pre-pandemic, but I think the pandemic changed so many things beyond the realms of mobility anyway, and obviously the knock-on impact was there for everybody to see, shifting away from those assignments, which we've mentioned. I think more like, for example, at Personio is we're more looking at virtual collaboration in a lot of ways, like mobility used to kind of as team cohesion rather than specific physical necessity. So trying to keep teams kind of together in one place, and but their work can largely be done fully online. So yeah, but just trying to keep the core focus of mobility there somewhat. And yeah, like Krista mentioned, there's a lot of employee demands. So that previously you might have had certain packages that were kind of just set in stone for each hire based on certain parameters, but now it's very flexible. It's based on a lot of what the individual actually wants on a day-to-day. So, and as well as just tools throughout the employee life cycle as well. So we have to deal with a lot more workation requests. So, and that extends to like the talent attraction side of things as well. Also like the EOR space, like you can quickly fill gaps in far-flung corners of the world very quickly, which you perhaps couldn't do before. You might have to move a team, whereas now you can set up a team fully remote. You might even be able to establish an entity without even having people visit said location. So yeah, the need for a physical presence is not what it used to be. But yeah, I don't think it doesn't make the role of mobility diminished in any way. So it just expands the scope of what we do. Yeah.
Adds more to the plates of the team that are already stretched, right, in that case.
Yeah.
And obviously, like from technical transformation, Krista, that you mentioned, obviously, you get text now rather than the calls the same. But how has technology transformed mobility management in recent years?
I think it's really changed significantly. So I remember several years ago, even just the tools that we used with our providers. So now there's a lot more cohesion between different suppliers in the technology that's used for mobility. But in the past, there either wasn't technology and we were just interacting over email, over the phone. Any data that we got was just in a spreadsheet, no true analytics. And so one of the challenges that I experienced in the past was the business would say, well, what's the cost of this relocation? Or how much have we spent? Or the employee's leaving, now we need to recoup some of the cost. And every time that question came up, it was like this panic because we didn't have access to that data. And we had to go to every different provider to gather the costs as well as to payroll, get all of the information together and hope that it was all actually there. That has changed so much now because we have so much more ability to run reports ourselves, to get data instantaneously and not have to wait multiple days. And also the integrity of the data and the accuracy now is there, when I think in the past we thought it was right, but I can't say with certainty that we knew it was right in many cases. And so we were kind of just hoping it was good enough. I think now good enough is not okay. We have to make sure that it is accurate. So that's changed a lot. And I think it's made it easier for us as mobility professionals to focus on the delivery of what we're doing with the family, the individual, the business, versus dealing with all of the little bits and pieces that happen when you don't have those technological systems to support you. So I think that's helped a lot. And then I think from the employee experience side, there's been definitely an improvement in the employees' ability to have visibility to what's happening with their relocation. So in the past, typically there'd just be a person and they talk on the phone and there weren't a lot of updates. So they didn't have an idea of what was happening. Now they have the ability in many cases to go into a portal or a system and to actually see what's happening with all the different pieces of their relocation, which I think gives them a greater sense of calm going through a very stressful process, because even if they can't control it, they know where things stand. And I think information is very powerful for individuals to be able to not have to worry that whether or not things are happening, because they know, and then they can focus their energy and efforts in other places. So I think as a whole, it's really transformed the whole industry, both from like the company side, the supplier side, as well as the employee side.
Yeah, that anxiety side of things, like you're okay with the delay if you know about the delay. If you have no idea what's going on, it's super
Then yeah.
anxious, right? And so, Mark, can you provide examples of tools you're using or platforms that have had a significant impact on enhancing your mobility efficiency, like expansion strategy, the employee experience?
Yeah, I mean, we've been very careful to use agencies and partners in like specific to certain locations based on what we see as their expertise. Like for instance, in the US, you really do need to use a US located agency because there's so many nuances to it that a company that perhaps tries to spread its wings across the world maybe just isn't aware of a lot of the nitty gritty stuff. So yeah, well, this is where someone like yourselves, Localize, come in. It's a one-stop shop situation in a lot of ways. It reduces administrative burdens on our team, although we remain kind of the POC for an individual when they move. Like we do hand over a lot of the details to Localize or similar, and we expect kind of the local knowledge of it. Let's take, for example, Germany, which is our biggest market in Personio and where most of our relocations are. We use yourselves for that, and we know you have local knowledge there and you can help with painful things like booking embassy appointments and all of these things. So yeah, that's yeah, just having that one-stop shop there. Equally, kind of the growing collaboration with software like ourselves at Personio. Like we have an integration which we'll talk about slightly later, but like to grow those kind of digital tools is something that we really look to do. Reduce layers for the individual, make the experience better. EOR platforms, which I mentioned already, like it's so easy to set up an employee on there now. And then you could go all the way back to tools that everybody uses, like Zoom and Slack. Like they increase collaboration, they make everything easier for mobility. So yeah, it's pretty endless what's available to us now.
Yeah, definitely. All those tools, use them all. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, Krista, do you feel there's an increasing pressure on companies to adopt technological solutions to enhance or make their process more efficient?
I think in general, yes. I think when it comes to mobility specifically, I don't know that there's necessarily pressure from the business for us to use different technology, but it's for us to deliver in a more efficient manner. And so for us, that means using better technology. And so I know that there's a drive to, become efficient, become a little bit more streamlined with what we do. And so the natural solution is to use better technology, more integrated solutions where we have the ability to then deliver back to the business whatever outcomes they're expecting in a more efficient manner, where we're giving them more accurate data more quickly. So that's kind of where I see the pressure there is we want information and we want information quickly and we want to know that it's accurate. And so in order for us to be able to do that, we have to use the right tools to help us, especially when we're operating in small teams and don't have a number of people doing the work. Having those tools helps us to be able to deliver that information to the business.
And you mentioned data analytics before, and just again there, how has that been used to improve your decision making in this area? All right, is it just around cost savings you mentioned earlier, or more than that?
I think it's more than that. Definitely cost savings. If we don't have visibility to our costs, then we don't know where we maybe need to make some adjustments to our policies or to our offerings. A thing that I see coming up, it's come up for years, and I think it will still continue to come up, is just exception management. And I was speaking with someone this week about exceptions and how she's seeing a ton of them in her program and doesn't know how to handle it. And I said, we really have to have the data on the exceptions to be able to see, are our exceptions spread completely across the board? Are we having exceptions that are focused in one particular area or in a few areas? Because if we're seeing repeated exceptions in specific areas, that data is going to tell us that maybe we do need to make an adjustment to our policy. Maybe it's too rich, not rich enough. Maybe we're missing the mark on something. We need more flexibility. And so having that kind of information will help guide decision-making when you're looking at making changes to your policy or educating the business around what a specific offering is. I know one thing that comes up is destination and settling in services, and the business not seeing the value in that for the cost. And, if we're constantly having issues with employees and we're having exceptions or challenges, you having that information to be able to educate the business around what that is and what value it will bring then can help with them making the decisions around maybe offering that type of service in the future. So I think it's been really valuable. I think, depending upon what kind of analytics we have as well, if we're doing any kind of surveys from employees, taking that information and reflecting it back to look at our supply chain, look at our program, both internally and externally, to continue to make improvements. I think, all of us in mobility are in that constant state of, changing and improving and evolving. And when we have that feedback, then it can give us a better foundation for making decisions that align with the direction we want to go and with the sentiment of our employees.
I
Nice.
think just on the survey point, that's like a massive thing at Personio, like quarterly surveys. Like, this isn't just on the partners, but also our own performance as well. And as HR professionals, like, the employees are our customers, so we want that feedback straight away, and we do action a lot of the things or make changes quite smoothly with survey results. Really, it's a big thing that we rely on, because people won't always necessarily tell you how things are going over Slack. They just want the stuff done. And like, they don't always find the opportunity to come and tell you how it was. They're just like, oh, my visa's sorted, like, that's it, I'm here now. Whereas the process might have not actually been that smooth. So it's good to hear a bit more color to their experiences, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw in a question here, like, maybe for people on the webinar. The surveys, do you do standard NPS and qualitative, or is it more in-depth survey than that? Just people to learn.
Bit of both, really. We invite as much qualitative information as possible, really. It's kind of kept very open for how much they want. Some people will ignore them, of course, as always happens. But we do kind of try and get the feedback from people that have had like a bit more than the perhaps like just a simple employer change or something, where they haven't really engaged that much with anybody. It's been like a very routine thing. It's more about the kind of broader processes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so undoubtedly, when digital transformation is mentioned, AI tends to take center stage, right? There's been a lot of talk about AI and Gen AI. Have you witnessed any key areas where AI-driven automation or anything else has driven efficiency or any other kind of value in global mobility operations?
Should I come in on that one first? Sure, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that my opinion is maybe we're not quite there yet, but you're certainly seeing signs of it. Like, who doesn't jump on a chatbot from time to time with some more routine things? But we are seeing certain names in the market come out with for tools specifically for like HR, legal advice, labor law advice, benchmarking even. So it's the point now where you kind of use your judgment to think, how much do I want to engage with this and use this as my way of doing those things? But I think it's definitely in the right direction. We've also seen the US CIS mention that they're going to be testing some AI tools for data entry and document reviews. And obviously with immigration authorities, you often think that they're quite bureaucratic, sometimes like slightly archaic in their processes. So that was really promising, and hopefully similar governments adopt similar things, so we don't have to send things like through post like we do in Germany and the Netherlands and the like. So yeah, I think it's going in the right direction is generally my view, like most things in AI, I guess.
Chris, you got anything to add, or should we move on to the next question?
I think move on.
Nice. Cool. So we've kind of gone back and like looking at now future trends and strategies. So as I mentioned earlier, geopolitical shifts underway as elections approach. How can global mobility teams and companies proactively prepare for any potential changes, especially for smaller teams or like companies maybe struggling to find time to proactively plan? We mentioned reactive before.
Yeah, I think, one of the most important things is having honest and open conversations as early as you can. I think, we talk about politics, but we don't want to talk about politics, but we know that it's going to impact our program. So we can talk about it in a way that is, non-biased. We're not talking about the actual, elections, but we're talking about the potential outcomes of different scenarios. And I think the sooner that we can start to have those conversations and uncover the impact it might have on our business, the better prepared we can be. Because one of the things that we see in mobility is like things move very quickly. And if we don't have and make the time to start thinking proactively about some of these potential scenarios, then when it happens, then we're constantly in that firefighting mode and trying to resolve issues that are then already in progress. We can't stop, we can't turn back, we haven't prepared for. And then it just creates a very chaotic environment for everyone. So I think the biggest key, especially when you're looking at smaller teams, smaller programs, is leaning on your providers, leaning on the experts who are tracking all the different potential scenarios and really engage with them early on. I was at a conference, and one of the things that was talked about was the impact on U.S. immigration of third-party placement of H-1B employees. And it's not something that I had really considered because we don't have that. But in a previous role, in another company, we did have that. And it went as far as to say that the master service agreements between the company and the third party may have to be rewritten to properly place those employees. So that brings in a whole nother group of procurement and legal that we may not have ever even thought about just being in mobility, because we're thinking about just that direct impact. And so just engaging people from the beginning, and like I said, using those experts to flag potential issues. And, for some companies, this may not be an issue, but for some it might. And so having that awareness to start talking about it now before the actual outcome will help people be more prepared, so that when things happen, we kind of know which route we're going to have to take depending upon the outcome.
Yeah, definitely, especially when it's happening globally, right? There's elections
Right.
across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark, what are the emerging trends in mobility that you're seeing and that other businesses should be prepared for, other than the elections?
Yeah, no, there's a few other things I'm kind of noticing. A lot of them go back to like what we spoke about earlier, like a lot of the dynamics have shifted towards like talent-led changes. So I know, and you see about new digital nomad visas being kind of introduced all the time for very nice destinations. I know I've just seen Italy, Thailand do this, and then obviously this is something that potential candidates or existing employees might try and bring to our attention. If you were to approve these things, it's a good retention attraction tool, but like what impact does that have on kind of permanent establishment or tax risks, or even the strategy and culture of your company? Like if you're having people similar to EORs kind of based around like, what impact is this having? I won't mention like anything too much more in on the US side of the elections, but like the UK, there's also some things like, for instance, the NHS workers who can't bring partners and things like that. There's some kind of slightly potentially cruel things happening with certain rules, and there may be more. But I also wanted to bring up like some positive things we're seeing as well, like the EU single permit changes, which do make horizontal changes across the EU. And these have actually made things slightly more flexible, easier to do employer changes, better unemployment rights and that kind of thing. So they're not necessarily changes in the wrong direction. They're actually smart changes and just improving things over time. So hopefully we see that more. Hopefully the being prepared for things is good, positive updates like that as well. I think one thing that will not change though is the kind of skills shortages globally that we'll see, particularly with aging populations in a lot of places. So I think we're going to be kept busy, particularly at Estonia where we have offices, definitely.
I see a theme of being kept busy throughout this, right?
Yeah,
exactly. And Krista, as regulations change and will inevitably change worldwide, how can companies ensure compliance with all those diverse immigration, tax, and employment law changes across different countries? And where can people take steps to reduce legal risks?
Yeah, I think, kind of like I said earlier, engaging with your partners, they're the experts. We as mobility professionals can't know everything there is to know about every potential jurisdiction where we have individuals. And so having the network that has that expertise in those different locations, I think is really critical to making sure that we're on top of anything that can impact us. Obviously, we want to stay up to date. We want to stay educated, read the newsletters, read the papers, stay across it, but don't always, obviously expect that you're going to know all the details. But I think having awareness of what's happening and what's changing so that when an instance comes up, who to speak to, it's a flag, it's kind of that trigger so that you don't miss something that's potentially really important. I think that's, the kind of the way that we navigate. We have to lean on our network to be able to navigate the constant changes that we see across all different jurisdictions, and not just in immigration, it's in a lot of different spaces, employment as well. And so we have to be really on the radar with the different experts so that we can make sure that they're supporting us properly when we do have changes that we need to be aware of.
But the good thing is there's a lot of content, isn't there? Like the newsletters, you get so much through, often on similar topics, and you almost forget that you how you signed up for this particular partner, and you're like, wow, that's like really useful for me.
Yep.
So yeah, like it's great. Like you will miss stuff. Obviously, people will come at you with, did you know about this change to X visa or whatever? But like there is a lot of content there that you can pick up on these things. It's not there to trick you, I guess, these updates often.
Yeah. And I often find too, like we have, you'll have employees who they are very across a lot of the details. And I think, they sometimes will tell me things that I don't know. And of
Yeah.
course, we also validate. We want to make sure
Sure.
that what information they're getting is also accurate. But sometimes they're a source because especially when it comes to an immigration process, that's very close to an employee's, well-being and their welfare in a different country. And so sometimes they're even abreast of more changes than we are. And so it's good to kind of stay in touch and make sure that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, that often happens with kind of like permanent residency or citizenship processes, which you maybe, because they're not as employer-led, you might be told something by an employer, like, oh, I might have to check that because
Yep.
not in your day-to-day. But yeah, you learn other things from your network.
Yes.
And most importantly, don't always trust ChatGPT or double check everything
Agreed.
because it's old data sometimes and it does sometimes lie to you.
It definitely does. Yeah, that's for sure.
So my closing question, what for both of you, what practical advice would you give to businesses that are just starting to develop their global mobility programs today?
Mark, you can go ahead with this one first if you want.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, people first approach is the main thing for me. Like gone are the days of those kind of rigid structures. So I think you've got to approach things with a lot of empathy and flexibility. People when they're moving particularly are thinking about their well-being and their family first. So yeah, that's kind of number one. But I think that's part of why we enjoy what we do often, like helping people to relocate or the wider remit of what we do. I think another thing that I really like moving to a company like Personio is that we've got solid tools that we use that match our culture. So my advice would be, if you can afford it, obviously as a smaller business, to streamline with similar tech and like reduce those layers, because the employee experience is so much better when they don't have to think, oh, who did I speak to about housing? Who did I speak to about my visa, etc. So, and ones that kind of look similar and they're intuitive platforms and things. So yeah, finding things that are you wouldn't necessarily use, like an old school US immigration attorney, when there's more modern platforms that your software engineers, etc., would prefer to use. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with the people first approach. And I think it's an interesting question because the company that I'm at has been around for 15 years and I've only been here for about a year and a half. And before I joined, there was mobility, there were, immigration cases and relocation, but there was never really a formal program and there was no mobility expertise. And so that's part of the reason that I'm here, is to help guide a mobility transformation within the company on getting ourselves to somewhere where we have policies that are the right fit for the growth that we expect in the future. And so one of the things that's been really important as I've gotten into this role is understanding the company, understanding the reasons we have mobility, the drivers, like I said before, what do we need mobility for? What are we trying to solve? So that's been important. And then understanding the culture. And I think, coming from engineering to accounting to tech has been very different cultural norms at each different company. And so culture is a big thing here. Employee experience is a big thing. And so I am now making sure that as I'm implementing different policies and procedures, that I'm keeping those different cultural elements in mind, because it's very important to align our culture with our strategy of mobility. And so that's been something that's really important. And I think, just engaging the business and trying to expand outside of the function of mobility or the function of the people team, and really trying to get face time with anyone in the business to understand what's actually happening. And that's been a process for me. I kind of at first was in this, like, I called it my people team bubble, where I interacted with a lot of people, but they were almost all on the people team. And so I've had to proactively reach out to different stakeholders in the business to try to have those conversations, just to understand what is happening that I don't have visibility to, so that as we start to shift and grow and start to expand, I can then create solutions that are aligned with those growth objectives.
Perfect. Thank you. And to finish that off with the point both of you raised before, use the data that you have to try and use to your advantage, and the surveys and qualitative feedback from employees about what they want. Really, really important to try and drive that.
Mhm.
Thank you both for that conversation. We're now going to nicely, smoothly transition into a localized product demo. So hopefully this will work. So kind of taking everything we've learned about the kind of the past, present, and future. What we at Localize try to do is create a global mobility platform to try and help everyone and break down borders. So it is a live demo. So please, everyone, bear with me to make sure that, and fingers crossed, my internet stays happy. Um, Cool. And everyone should be able to see my screen. Yeah,
Now in the platform.
I'm now in the platform. Perfect. So what I'll do within this demo is I'll talk through Localize's two different UIs. One dedicated to the HR professional and one dedicated to the talent or employee, because we know employee experience is really important, as we've heard today. So we know that HR departments have many challenges to solve. Global mobility is just one of them. It's a complex topic, and most companies don't have the expert knowledge and or time to understand what options are in front of them. So we give HR teams access to specialized knowledge database, as well as access to pre-check cases to try and de-risk new hires. So our case managers, our team keep data up to date based on current waiting times and processing times of embassies that we work with and we've kind of dealt with in the past. And so here, for example, you can see that the German embassy in Turkey has a 10 to 12 week waiting time, which is quite a long time before you can even get an appointment. And because of the data we have and the knowledge we have from all our cases, this is key valuable, it's massively valuable to our customers to just understand pre-hire. Another way to de-risk or understanding the risk of a new hire, both in terms of the timelines and what type of visa, it's just kind of really crucially important for resource planning. So we offer pre-checks to give HR peace of mind when planning starting dates with hiring managers or anything like that. So the team can fill out anonymous if they want to, with no first name or last name. Here, really, really easily within the product, we've got a 24-hour SLA response time to get back to HR with a clear guidance on work eligibility of the candidate and sort of what timelines can you expect. So here I'm going to pause and ask Mark a question, which is, what is the kind of most unusual pre-check that you personally have submitted to Localize?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say unusual, but one that shows the kind of usefulness of that, and like something that we really, as we go back to kind of saying we're learning things on the spot often. A colleague in my team had someone on a researcher permit in Germany, and they hadn't seen this before. Like, so it's strange how sometimes you can work somewhere for so long and you see these kind of new permits. And we wanted to understand whether it was possible to employ them under that permit. It looked like it kind of might be, and we did the pre-check. Turns out it wasn't, so we had to do a new one. So yeah, it's just those are the exact situations that this kind of thing is useful for. It saves us a lot of like kind of reading around. So yeah.
Calling that expertise of the people at Localize who know what they're doing. It's good.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So like, and once you kind of decide to hire someone, that's kind of where the real complexity starts, right? There's lots of complexity pre-hire, but the real complexity starts when you try and hire someone. And that's what we're here to do, to make that process as smooth and as automated as possible. And there's a huge drive for technology and digitalization in the HR space. So we try and save time to consolidate data in one place. We try and take all that stress and that back and forth. No more emails ping pong. I think it's for any kind of size of mobility team. So at a quick glance here, teams can see the key tasks they need to do as an HR manager, any cases which are potentially at risk of missing their start dates, any cases which are in a waiting state, waiting for an appointment, for example. And you get a quick glance of everything that is kind of going on from a data perspective, right? How many talents you have, any ongoing cases, and kind of a quick distribution of those cases right now. So that's a kind of an overview of the homepage. And then when you want to start a new case, we've got a really quick, easy form here. We've got integrations. We spoke about Personio. We've got a really quick integration here where we can pull down the information directly from the HRS systems and pull through all the relevant information in terms of who the employee is, cost centers, hiring managers, etc. Like that. And we autofill all that. So we've got integrations with Personio, Bamboo, HiBob, SAP, and Workday, and can easily expand to others behind others, but based on our unified API and behind the scenes. We pull all the information that we need if it's available in those tools, as I'm sure everyone on this call knows, that sometimes that information is available, sometimes it isn't. And when a process starts, we are launching soon. Relevant documents get uploaded back into those HRS systems, like visa scans or health insurance certificates. So this creating a case is a 4-step process, which should take less than 5 minutes, and even less with an integration active. And we've got perfect person on the call here, Mark from Personio. So how much time and how do you use the integration today?
Yeah, admittedly, probably just a few minutes. But if you're doing a bunch of these forms, which could be somewhat mundane, but you also have to be very careful that obviously the information you're putting in is correct. But yeah, like it can just the ease of putting that through. But I think me and you both know, Anthony, we'd like to see a lot more from this in our partnership and our integration. So like you mentioned, the document flow, like stuff like that's going to be pretty game changing when it all rolls out. So yeah, no, it can only be again something that we'll keep iterating on.
Nice. Rolling out next week from Director of Product.
Next week, perfect.
There we go. Perfect. So like once we kind of got this, we select a destination country, for example, Germany here, and we click through to the next step. And you can see here all the current sort of cases we offer in Germany and services, domestic relocation, foreign relocation, business trips, offboarding, etc. And we kind of go through there. We pull through the relevant documents, job title, start dates, etc. And in the final step, you can see all the additional services and additional relocation services we offer to talents. So we work with companies and their core flex models, right? Which meaning that you can add core services like agency services for temporary housing if you want to do that, but then give talents an allowance to spend 10,000, or let's be generous and have a 10,000 euro allowance to kind of people to relocating. So then they can pick and choose services like school search or pet relocation if they need that. So then even though we try to allow HR to keep hands off most of the process, sometimes we do need your actions here, like signing a certificate of sponsorship, for example. So we kind of keep all those tasks in one place, link them directly to a particular employee. Here you'll see Kelly a few times throughout my demo, but then you can kind of keep up to date with what is going on from your talents. At a quick glance, you can see who you're managing. Like, for example, a larger global mobility team will have different people managing different employees. You might have your own talent and all talent. So you can see very easily which talents you are managing and you're in charge of, as well as any open tasks, how long along the process you are. But if you want a more detailed breakdown, this kind of gets into the data and reporting side of things. We give a very, very deep level of information of all the data in one place for everyone. So per talent, you can see lots of things like the case type, the creation date, job title, start date, country residence, all this sorts of stuff, including pricing, how much it's potentially costing. We see all the zeros here because it's a demo account, but kind of see what's going on, and you can kind of change, filter anything in here in terms of where someone's going to, coming from, move columns around. Really, really importantly to try and manage the data and interrogate the data as much as you possibly can within one place. And you can also download CSVs and share the reports to other people who don't have access to localize very easily from here. We also know, very importantly, like you want to kind of take the graphs, maybe put it in presentations to leadership. So we kind of give key graphics on our reporting page to download again and put into those sorts of presentations to key stakeholders. If we click through to a particular talent, as I mentioned, you can see Kelly again here. You can see all the core pieces of information in one place, the personal information, the case information of where she's going to, what case she's doing, how many additional services she's purchased, who is in charge of the case from localizer's perspective, from HR perspective, all in one place. And we centralize those communication in one place and the document. And we obviously try and automate as much of these updates and messages as much as we can. But here's where you can see the key differentiator of localize our process pipelines. We give HR and talent a clear view of every single step, like 27 steps here is not insignificant to complete their relocation. These pipelines are completely flexible, customizable, meaning that if someone wants to tailor a pipeline to their specific process by adding a step and going to the office, for example, going to the office on the first day with address, they can. It also means we haven't got like a one-size-fits-all approach. We have a core set of pipelines that are used and can be tailored to the individual if they're traveling with family or additional services they need to go to. We also try and like centralize and consolidate all those services in one place. So you can see our partners are responsible for other services like airport pickups or housing setups or temporary housing searches. And you can see here that our partner We Find Flats has had a kickoff call with Kelly 25th of April, entering the data there. So kind of centralizing everything. One of the things, obviously, a huge topic over the past sort of 12 months for global mobility teams, which has been kind of forced onto global mobility teams over the last few months, is remote working and business trip compliance. So we're kind of managing all that within Localize as well. We send out and share a link which you can share with anyone in the company to fill out their form if they're going on a workation or a business trip. So where they're going to, what they're doing, how long they're going for, and we kind of try and keep all the information in one place. We have a risk assessment, which you can see, and you can see who is going to where, any kind of risks which kind of pop up there from a workation or business trip perspective. And I will now hopefully seamlessly switch over to our talent view. So this is the view we have for employees. Employability is complex. We know we've heard super anxious for talents going for a huge life-changing process and uplifting their entire lives and moving across the world. And if there's lots of free resources, it's hard to find something reliable. We're their friendly expert, hopefully, helping them through the process and solving all their relocation needs in one place. Before I dive into this this part of the product, Mark, obviously you've used this, you have feedback, you do those NPS surveys.
Mhm.
Have you had any feedback from talent about our product, and if so, what they say?
Yeah, actually one from some survey results from last quarter, I believe, was to do with documentation flows and just keeping everything in one place. It was someone who had a partner and 2 children, I believe. So you're talking about lots of certified documents and having all those in one place, and the fact that it was kind of all approved in one go, which you would expect, but is not always going to be the case with some authorities. So yeah, they specifically mentioned just like the relief of that. And then more recently, I've had someone I'm dealing with who is moving from Southeast Asia to Germany, which involves like a few extra steps, including having to receive mail and like hand-signed mail and things from our offices in Munich to their address, and the fact that all the very detailed updates on like the postage status and things is on Localize, and yeah, like booking their embassy appointment for them and their family. There's so many like intricate pieces to it, and just being able to see that. And I have to say the case manager for that one was very proactive in providing updates on that case. So yeah, it's just the full visibility which you mentioned. Often
Nice.
leads to good feedback.
Yeah, like moving from Southeast Asia to Germany is a tough one. When I started at Localize, I actually helped out with some cases, and one individual was from the Philippines over to Germany, and it was having to ship some of those documents from Germany to the Philippines, signed and back again. Oh yeah,
it took like 4 days somehow. I still can't understand how that happens, but yeah.
But yeah, so like everything here is in one place, right? So the overview here is a single place, a single homepage with all the relevant information for the employee to kind of what they need to know. They can see how far along they are in their process right now, their key next step. So you see Kelly's first day is next week. In terms of 1st July, we've got the helpful links to our knowledge pages, links to speak to our case managers directly here, links to their documents, and also services outside of immigration here, which I'll get onto in a second. And as we saw in the HR view, we have that pipeline. The process flow is the step-by-step journey in a lot of detail that we can kind of go through here. You can see the kind of exact copy of what we saw for HR for Kelly, meaning there's no missing steps, no confusion. You need to see who is doing what, and when they need to do it. For example, you see there's a clear action for Kelly here. You can see HR user has done a few things behind here, and the case manager as well. You can see here within the steps, like verify your degree in the Anabin database, which I have looked through as well, which is quite thorough there. It's all the kind of our knowledge there, curated by our case managers, curated by our team to handhold them through the process based on what visa they're getting, where they're moving to, where they're coming from. As I also mentioned on the HR view, we have the ability for talents to use their allowance to initiate services they think they're valuable for their journey. Our marketplace gives talents the flexibility to purchase services from localized either by themselves or from an allowance given to them by HR. Purchasing by themselves, we use Stripe behind the scenes, so it's all seamless and enterprise grade. That we aren't sending invoices back and forth by emails. It's kind of all in there. And we have our perks page, which is very similar, but offers affiliate links to our partners and talents. Offers affiliate links to our talents, where we've negotiated discounts or perks for them if they book by a specific link or form. And last but not least, LocaBuddy, nice naming here, is where we connect individuals moving from the same place to the same place. We know it's challenging for everyone to be building a community. So building a community is vitally important to kind of settle in your new life effectively. We've actually seen individuals come back to localize app a year after they've relocated to be a LocaBuddy, and even individuals from different companies become roommates, right? It's the power of bringing people together and breaking down borders, which kind of leads me on to my final question. Mark, what specific features or aspects of localized tool have been particularly helpful to you? And what do you consider the key value driver?
Quite simple, really. Just going on to, you've got obviously the view of all of your ongoing cases. And I think Krista mentioned something earlier about kind of used to have everything on an Excel spreadsheet. Like you can miss stuff very easily in that kind of method of working. Whereas this, like you'll go on the list and you'll be like, oh yeah, that person, like there's so much there, but it's all in a very clear order with all the relevant dates and steps. And then once you also go into the employee profile, I think it's on the side, you have tasks, updates, messages, is it? And just seeing immediately who the case handler is, seeing the steps, like often there's something like we need an urgent appointment or whatever. So I can send a message, it negates the need to go hop onto email and email a CSM account manager that doesn't even know about this case, and they're suddenly like trying to forward it on. So yeah, it's tailored to that individual. Yeah, and often I don't, like if I go onto candidates or talent's profile, I don't need to kind of click much further. It's kind of all there. So yeah, the simplicity of it really is what adds value for us.
Nice. Cool. We've got 5 minutes for Q&A now. So if anyone listening in wants to ask any questions, feel free to answer one. Oh, and we've got one there, anonymous. There we go, straight away. For either of you, what happens once the visa receive? Oh, this is to me maybe. Does localized support renewals and things like that? I can answer that. Yes, we can handle support renewals. So as the visa comes in and you move to a location, we help with the residence permits and booking those appointments. And then those visas up for renewal 12 months, 24 months later, we send an emails and kind of kick off that process so we can help with renewal changes and things like that. Hopefully that answered your question. Next one's come through. Could you share how companies can stay ahead of upcoming trends and what resources might be beneficial to monitor upcoming changes? That one's not for me. There we go.
Yeah, I think I can, just a few things that I do. So I am, like Mark said, subscribed to a lot of different newsletters. And what I found is a lot of the relocation management companies, they are across a lot of the trends across not just one specific section of mobility, but kind of mobility as a whole. And so I found those, both their newsletters as well as a lot of the webinars very useful. Joining LinkedIn groups where people are sharing information about what's happening in different locations has been very helpful. And then, like I said before, communicating with your suppliers, making sure that you're having regular catch-ups with them, not on just the activity that you're actively engaged with, but what they're seeing, what trends they're seeing, what they're receiving on their end, that you may need to look out for in your business. I think is really helpful to have those conversations as well with your providers.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add there, to be honest. Newsletters, LinkedIn, yeah, expecting some updates from your agencies and partners to help guide you. And yeah, often I'll jump onto a bi-weekly or similar with a partner, and they'll be like, just to mention, did you see this? Did you know this? We'll proactively try and help mitigate this, whatever it may be. So yeah, there is a lot of help there, but you still need to be on the ball, I suppose.
Yeah, agreed.
I'll ask one more. Let's see if everyone can add more there. Regarding like tech solutions for smaller companies with limited budgets, have either of you got some tips on any affordable yet effective digital tools or strategies you could use to implement or like enhance your global mobility processes?
So I don't have the answer to that because I'm kind of in that same space of like looking for smaller tool or looking for tools. We're a smaller company, smaller program. And I am going to be looking at technology solutions in the coming year to see how we can utilize tools most effectively. So we do have some internal tools that we use, but also looking externally. So love your opinion on that, Mark.
Yeah, I would say you can publish a lot of useful information on your kind of internal company intranet, whatever you want to call it. Say, let's say a Dutch, if you have a sponsorship status in the Netherlands, like you don't necessarily need to outsource things to a partner to do your work. You have the logins yourself. Like if you can effectively learn how to do the process yourself and make sure that's published for the visibility of those that need it, and then you could perhaps come up with local guides on settling in and how to assimilate with a new location on. So you can get a lot, and we still publish a lot of information on our even though we use so many providers and things to help the process flow, we do still rely a lot on internal employee resources as well. So but I think if you're much smaller, that might be your only option. So if you do a good job of that and people understand it, then it's worth using.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too that I noticed is looking at ways to start quantifying the amount of time you're spending on different tasks and having any kind of data that you can collect internally to then prove a future case for the need for more technology, I think helps. And we do that internally with the tool that we're using to automate certain processes. And so when we automate a process, we then take and look at that process and say, okay, manually, I was spending an hour to go through this process. Now that it's automated, it's 15 minutes. So I'm now saving 45 minutes. And so finding ways to demonstrate the value then helps to prove the case. And so I think that's what a lot of leaders are looking for when they're making decisions on technology is how much more effective is it actually going to make you? And those are the kind of data points that will be useful.
Yeah, you can't really argue with those kind of data points often as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.